The Energy Exchange Show is funded by the European Union in partnership with the United Nations Development Programme, the Ministry of Public Utilities, Energy, Logistics and E-Governance, the Ministry of Youth, Sport and Transport, and the Belize City Council.
Good night and welcome to the Energy Exchange. I am Shanoy Gentle and I will be your moderator for this event. Tonight's focus will be on electric mobility. The shift from fossil fuel to electric power transportation, commercial and industrial processes and buildings are becoming important in the reduction of greenhouse gases. Electrification in the transportation industry drives a host of socio-economic and environmental benefits worldwide. E-mobility allows for countries to curb greenhouse gas emissions as they move away from emitting fossil fuels towards energy supplied from clean power sources, while creating economic opportunities within the transport market. Electrifying the transport sector is a key step in the mitigation of climate change risks and impacts, with added benefits of reducing air pollution, cutting fossil fuel imports, and improving conditions for urban and rural mobility across Central America. Before we delve further into this interesting topic, I would like to go ahead and introduce our panelists for tonight. We have joining us Mr. Justino Palomo, Mr. Julian Fox, and Mr. Chad Dietrich. Mr. Palomo, could you go ahead and let us know which entity you're presenting and what are some of the roles that you're responsible for?
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Gentle. My name is Justino Palomo. I'm the project development specialist within the Ministry of Economic Development at the Climate Finance Unit. My main role is to develop a concept note to request funding, and that concept note will be focusing on how we can transform the public transportation by integrating e-mobility concepts and the technology. Currently, we already did several consultations with bus operators, with the different ministries, with different private entities, and by the end of this month the concept note will be completed to be sent to the Green Climate Fund for requests for funding.
Okay, Mr. Fox.
Good night everyone, my name is Julian Fox, representing BL. I'm a distribution and planning engineer responsible for power quality and supporting the e-mobility project.
Hello, my name is Chad Dietrich. I'm the general manager for Caribbean Motors. As a company, our role in e-mobility started about 5 years ago, recognizing the trend in electrification of transportation. We were the first car dealership to bring in electric vehicles to Belize, and are proud to say we were part of the e-mobility pilot project with the first 5 buses in conjunction with the EU and UNDP. Getting those on the road and part of our public transportation sector. So that's where I come in, and that's where our company comes in the e-mobility sector.
All right, excellent. Okay, thank you panelists for those introductions. Now to get started with our discussions, Mr. Palomo, given your role in your unit, how are you guys supporting the e-mobility initiatives in Belize, specifically in terms of accessing funds and building partnerships?
Okay. First of all, the Climate Finance Unit was developed in 2022. It's just about 2 years that it was developed, and it was after Prime Minister Briceño led a delegation to COP in Glasgow, London. They realized that Belize can capitalize in climate financing, and having a specialized unit to maximize financing towards climate change impacted projects. So Cabinet gave a mandate to the Climate Finance Unit. Initially it was about two persons that were within the unit, and just 2 years later we have about 11 people working on the unit. So within those 2 years we already brought about 88 million US dollars in Belize to support different sectors. The most recent one was the sugarcane industry, the 50 million Belize dollars to support the sugarcane industries. So the climate finance unit within the Ministry of Economic Development, which I need to highlight that the Ministry of Economic Development is the national designated authority towards the Green Climate Fund. That means that the mandate of the ministry is to review national priorities that are aligned with the national determined contributions, which are in alignment with Paris Agreement. So we use a no objection letter process to review these different project initiatives. As I mentioned, climate financing is focusing on projects that impacts social and have mitigation activities which reduces greenhouse gases, and also adaptation activities which, if we cannot mitigate the actions, then we need to adapt to the impacts of climate change. The CFU placed me in this role to collaborate with the different stakeholders and develop a concept note that will have a master plan on how we could upscale e-mobility within the public transportation. Currently, there's 5 electric buses under the pilot project, but that is not enough. We need to see the longer run. And just in alignment with the national determined contributions, by 2030, Belize needs to have 77 electric buses. That is a commitment that we have with the NDCs. With the NDCs, it's not only just to put targets, it's to what are the different activities that will lead to that target. So what is the strategy that we're going to use? So we started from December 2023 with these consultations and collaborating, especially with the three main ministries: Ministry of Economic Development and Finance, Ministry of Transport, and Ministry of Energy. These are the three main ministries that play a key role in e-mobility. Also, we already had different discussion with the private sector, which financial institutions, the Bus Owners Association, to see how we could move towards this transition. The climate financing in as a whole provides different types of funding. Green Climate Fund being one of the biggest climate financing institution. They provide grants. As I indicated, the sugar industry received 50 million Belize dollars in grant. We want to replicate something similar within the public transportation concept note. And the name of this concept note is Belize e-mobility and logistic transformation. It's a complete transformation within the public transportation. So the concept note will have a master plan that we will have specific milestones and targets by year, so that we could see the progress. Once the Green Climate Fund provides insights of what needs to be updated in the concept note, we will go strong on it, because it's a national priority. It's of essence to provide high quality service to our commuters. Also, there's concessional loans that the Green Climate Fund provides, and there's other organizations, the Adaptation Fund, IDB Invest provides also funding. And what is very important to highlight is that the Ministry of Economic Development is a central hub on all these multilateral banks and international financial institutions. So we are the ones that support the different sectors, and working in collaboration with the Ministry of Energy, Ministry of Transport, and MED, we are sure we know that we can make a difference.
Mr. Paloma, how does the current e-mobility pilot project and the BELT concept being developed, how does these fit within Belize's broader economic and environmental goals?
So one of the sectors that provides the highest impact on climate change in relation to the greenhouse gases is transportation. The fuel-based transportation, I'm not sure if you have seen on the roads, with there's dark fumes coming out of the vehicles, especially those old vehicles. And something very important to highlight, that the current situation of the public transportation, some of those buses are between 20 to 30 years old. Some are poorly maintained, and imagine the amount of fumes, the amount of greenhouse gases and toxic pollution that's happening in country. With the transition with electric mobility, that will stop. We won't have that pollution. We'll have clear, high quality air to breathe. The greenhouse gases, from an environmental standpoint, Belize is a small country, so it's key to understand that Belize doesn't feed or create a major impact in climate change, because the entire nation provides about 0.001% of the total global greenhouse gases. So our contribution to climate change is minimal. However, the impacts that Belize gets as a result of climate change, as a result of the greenhouse gases, compare Belize, less than 500,000 population, to Mexico, which is millions of people, Guatemala, and Latin American countries. So they do, and let's say the developed countries, USA, Europe, so they do contribute to the greenhouse gases and the impacts of climate change. What we in Belize, what we are doing is we can do mitigation projects to alleviate the pollution that's created here in Belize and affecting our health. When this current administration came in, the recent administration came in 2020, there was this vision of Plan Belize, the medium-term development strategies, the MTDS, and that has a master plan with all the different projects that will be executed within, and it's time-based, based on different milestones, but it's a transformative strategies, and the public transportation is one of them that's there. So the climate finance unit had to prioritize, and it makes it more strong with the collaboration with Ministry of Energy, the Ministry of Transportation, and the different partners that we have, BEL, Korean Motors, and other the financial institutions. So we have the Plan Belize, the medium terms development strategies, and also the national determined contributions, which is has more weight because that's international agreements that Belize has signed on. We have a low emission development strategy within the Ministry of Energy. That highlights that the plan is to transition to low carbon emission technologies, and that's one of the projects that we're highlighting, which is e-mobility and logistics transformation.
Okay. And what would you say are the key policies or regulations that would need to be put in place to support projects like the BELT concept to be able to provide that enabling environment to host these projects? And what is your unit doing in terms of saying, building that relationship with other agencies that can play a key role in making sure that this happens?
Well, one of the main thing is that investing in public transportation with e-mobility has a high capital investment, and there might be private entities that are willing to invest. However, the environment is not there yet, and one of the key is the different legislation and policies that needs to be in place. Within the BELT project proposal or concept note is that an e-mobility bill is required to have all the policies in place. With that, in investment and long-term view is that the road service permit, which comes from the Ministry of Transport, the Department of Transport is the authority. Currently, it's a 2-year contract. If we are talking about e-mobility, the e-buses, the investment for one bus goes from 400,000 Belize to 600,000, depends on the different parameters that we get on the buses. It's one bus, 400,000 Belize. It can be less, but if we want quality, then we need to see these buses that can be on the road for 20-25 years, but we do require quality. So the investment there is high. To provide a 2-year contract, it's not incentivizing the private sector to do this investment. About a few months ago, the Department of Transport, through the Ministry of Transport, provided a cabinet paper to increase from a 2-year contract to 10-year contract. That's more incentivizing, and within the consultations that we have been doing, the financial institutions indicated that if that's the strategy that will be in place, is that they are willing to take that 10-year contract as collateral along with the buses. So that's one of the main thing, the road service permit. And even in the last consultations that we had, Minister Ferguson mentioned that his plan is to, once there's a serious investment within the bus owners, and there's this willingness, then potentially the 10-year contract can be increased to a 15-year contract. But the willingness, the political will is there. We do need to transform the public transportation, and e-mobility offers an opportunity for Belize to revamp the entire system. It's not only bringing buses, it's ensuring that there's bus stations with adequate charging infrastructure. It's ensuring that our routes are adequate, especially with the road infrastructure. So it's a holistic view of how we will move forward from now going to the next 5 years or to the next 10 years. So road service permit is key. And also why the e-mobility is so attracting is that comparing with the cost of production, let's say from that standpoint, the cost of providing service, just using the fuel, it's using a 30 to 40% of your revenues, and sometimes if the buses are not properly maintained, that could take you to 50% of your revenues, just the fuel. So where is the to do the maintenance and that even reduce the profit margin. So currently, investing in the public transportation as is not motivating. Also, another policy that's very important is the energy bill. And why is it important is that changing from fuel-based transportation to electric transportation, that means that you won't be charged on the gallon of fuel, you will be charged on kilowatt hour consumed. And currently with the pilot project, there's 40 cents per kilowatt hour when you charge. There's still discussions on the way forward and to do the full implementation of the energy bill. There's this demand charge that can potentially affect the cost of providing service, but the kilowatt hour, if it stays as 40 cents per kilowatt hour consumption, then it does make business sense to move to that direction. So the energy bill policy is important, the road service permit is important, and climate resilient infrastructures, which is the roads. Majority has been enhanced to a standard, but why I mentioned climate resilient is that whenever there's heavy rains, there's lots of potholes on the road, and if you're driving a 400,000 electric bus and a tire bus and you have an accident, that is not incentivizing the private sector to do investment. So it's important to highlight that the political will is there, and the Ministry of Economic Development is willing to through this concept note to bring everyone on the table as how we are doing and discuss what are the way forward on this master plan, like what we're committing to do in year 1, what we're committing to do in year 2, and have a thorough monitoring and evaluation system to ensure that it happens.
Thank you very much for those valuable insights, Mr. Palomo. Chad and Julian, do you guys have any thoughts about what Mr. Palomo has just shared with us?
I think the Climate Finance Unit's doing a lot of valuable work, and it's great to see the amount of international funds that are out there to support this. I think you used the word transformation, right? I'm generally of the mindset that any project we take on, any transformation we take on, has to be able to be sustainable domestically. I'm not a big fan of projects that once the international funding disappears, the project falls flat. But what I like about this is what the Climate Finance Unit is unlocking in terms of those international funds is helping kickstart really a transformational, a paradigm shift in our transportation industry, helping us to buy in. So with the first 5 buses, it's giving us live data from Belize to show bus operators, to show the users of that transportation that this works, that this is effective, that it is good in many ways from an environmental standpoint, but also from an economic standpoint. I'm a banker by trade. I don't like to work on anything that's not economically viable. And when I can see that the economics and the environment side line up, that's when I and our company get passionate about a project. So it's good to see that this international funding is helping to kickstart something so monumental. So shout out to the Climate Finance Unit and the Ministry of Economic Development for pulling that all together.
All right, this brings us to the end of our first round of discussions. We will take a short break and we'll be right back to speak with Mr. Julian Fox.
Welcome to the new era of commuting. Introducing the 501 Transit app for navigating public transportation. Commuting across Belize? For those working late shifts and early mornings. For those who are always on time or running late. For the future and the new dreamers. Serving all the people of Belize, leaving no one behind. For those with mobility needs, we adapt to fit your lifestyle, making your routine smoother so you can enjoy every moment and create lasting memories. With the 501 Transit app, you will be able to plan and navigate with ease for a better and sustainable Belize.
Welcome to Belize Travel I Declare. Introducing the Belize Travel Digital Interface, a modern online tool designed to make your entry and exit into Belize smoother, faster, and more efficient. Available in both English and Spanish, this platform allows you to complete and submit your arrival and departure forms digitally with just a few clicks, ensuring seamless navigation through the process. Designed for all Belizeans and visitors, the Belize Travel I Declare interface ensures a modern, streamlined journey in and out of Belize. Upon arrival at the airport, simply present your QR code at immigration or customs. No more waiting in line for paperwork. It's quick, easy, and hassle-free. Belize Travel I Declare. Make your journey easier, faster, and more enjoyable.
I ride the e-bus on a regular basis. It was comfortable. I found it clean, and I found the conductors, they are very helpful and friendly. And to me, it's safer for the elderly.
The e-bus make it easier to get around the city, especially when I'm kicking out my mom. The e-bus is the only bus that is wheelchair friendly, and I am very grateful that they introduced the e-bus to Belize.
I like that the e-bus is clean, comfortable, and dependable. The overall experience is better. What makes it convenient for me as a student is that you can charge your phone and use the Wi-Fi all while riding the bus.
So some of the services that I like about the e-bus is that it's green and it's clean, 0 emissions, we're not destroying the environment. It's nice, cool, and very convenient.
Welcome back to the Energy Exchange. Mr. Fox, A large barrier to upscaling e-mobility in Belize is the lack of adequate charging infrastructure to meet our demands. From your standpoint, how is this being addressed in Belize?
Okay, so the main thing with upscaling e-mobility is, or one of the main thing is having chargers around to charge these electric vehicles, right? And before we get to that point of upscaling, we have to think about our electric grid. So we have to bolster the grid, ensuring that we have enough capacity, ensuring that we can meet the demand, right? So, of course, that's what we're working on first. We're implementing projects to bolster the grid, make it more reliable and dependable, so that we can assist with this e-mobility project.
Okay. So earlier this year, Belize experienced some electricity shortage, and with the push to deploy more EVs in the country as a decarbonization solution, how will BEL ensure that the electric grid and in-country generation capacity supports electric vehicles adaptation and its demands?
Okay, so one of the main things with generation is that we're not necessarily responsible, or we don't have full control over generation of electricity, right? So we have, of course, we have a regulator. In the short term, we did see that we had those generation shortfalls, right? So one project that we did was to upgrade our gas turbine at Westlake, and we also installed a turbine in San Pedro, right? That's a short-term project to mitigate against some of those issues. But in the medium term, we're looking to install renewable energy sources, right, to bolster the in-country generation.
Mr. Fox, what would you say are the most viable models for expanding electric vehicle charging infrastructure in Belize?
What is important in that is that we have partnerships between, of course, the utility, public and government, right? So, as you know, at BEL, we took on the initiative to install a public EV charging network across the country. So, in different locations across the country, we have chargers, and the idea behind that was to ensure that, okay, to build consumer confidence. They see these chargers, they will be more confident in purchasing an EV, knowing that, okay, if I go to Belmopan, I can charge there. If I want to take a trip down south, there are chargers there as well, up north and farther west in San Ignacio. So that's one of the main ways BEL started that initiative. And of course, you have the government, as you know, as was mentioned, that they are trying to find finance, right? And we can support in that, ensuring that when they need these buses, these buses will need chargers, right? And we have to be able to install the necessary infrastructure to support these chargers.
On the topic of electric vehicle charging, in the infancy of that shift from ICE or gas or diesel vehicles to electric mobility, that's always an awkward spot for any country. It's a chicken and egg. What comes first, right? You want charging infrastructure there to give early adopters that comfort to take on new technology. But on the flip side, there's not enough demand there to really make it economically viable. So it's tough, right? The charge point operator wants a good fleet of vehicles out there to be able to make money for that investment. So, kudos to BEL for jumping in to say, we see the trend is going this way, an initial investment needs to be made. And they've done just that. Caribbean Motors was actually part of that in terms of we were the supplier for the chargers. And again, it's been a little bit awkward. We've had to replace some chargers under warranty. That renewed fleet of chargers should be coming out in the next few weeks, really to give the existing EV owners that convenience of chargers being there. The other misconception that a lot of people think is they have to solely rely on that public infrastructure for the charging of their vehicles. But all the vehicles that I know, all the electric vehicles that I know of, are sold with a charger. They can be placed at somebody's home or their business, wherever they're going to be most with that vehicle. And with the ranges these days of real ranges between 400 and 500 kilometers, somebody could could go quite a long way and do most of their driving just charging from their home or business charger. But it still is good that that BEL infrastructure, that our public infrastructure is there to support those drivers wherever they may need to be. So again, I think we're getting through that awkward initial phase in the infancy of our e-mobility transition to a place where buyers will have, EV owners will have that comfort that chargers are available where they need to be and at reasonable prices.
Yeah. And you made an interesting point when you mentioned the ranges, right? Because if you think about it, if you have a full tank, or you leave at home with a full tank, how many times do you really stop at the gas station for the day? Or
right.
Is it a weekly thing, every 2 weeks? So it's the same with charging, right? If you have a constant run or a constant route that you take, you will know more or less when do you need to charge, right? So it might not be every day, it might be once a week that you really need to charge that vehicle. So
yes,
that's something that you need to keep in mind.
And the mindset shift is now we need to visit a fuel station, right? I always talk about, and people say, well, yeah, but it takes longer to charge an EV than it does to fill up. And I said, yes, that's true in some cases. But what about the convenience? Essentially, we're bringing the fuel station home with us.
Yeah.
It's almost like having a gas station at home, because that's where the majority of our charging is going to happen, right? For individual users, I understand for business that might be slightly different, but it would still be like having a fuel tank at the office, right? So it's just a mindset shift of how do we power up our vehicles, right?
All right, thank you very much, gentlemen, for those valuable inputs. We will now take a short break and we'll be right back to continue our discussions.
Belize is on the verge of a transformative breakthrough. The e-mobility project, an ambitious initiative aimed at revolutionizing our transportation and infrastructure systems, is now nearing completion. Today, we dive into the heart of this project to explore its objectives, challenges, and impact on the lives of Belizeans.
It has been an incredible project for us, an important milestone. This was initially introduced in Belize City, and we are very happy with the response we've gotten from our citizens.
It took about maybe 4 or 5 months for implementation. And once it was implemented, the people of the city really appreciate the transformation, the upgrade, and they enjoy riding these buses. We are partnering with the Ministry of Economic Development to put proposals together to seek funding from friendly agencies across the world. Some of those agencies are the European Union, UNDP is our implementing partner, and we are hopeful that within the next 2 or 3 years we can see a significant amount of buses coming back into Belize, maybe 50% of our fleet.
The primary objective of the project is to transform Belize's public transport sector by enabling low-carbon transport. The specific type of low-carbon transport that we're piloting in Belize is electric buses.
For the first time, people traveling from district to district will be able to travel in an electric bus, lowering the use of fossil fuels, reducing our carbon footprints.
This is a pilot project that's testing out the technology within Belize's sector. The idea is then that we're going to upscale and move towards importing 73 to 75 electric buses to the country. So the information and data and research that we gather from this pilot project would then feed into that upscaling, ensuring that we have a clear and defined action plan to move the country towards that plan.
Funded by the European Union, EU, and supported by a team of dedicated stakeholders and partners, the United Nations Development Programme, UNDP, the Ministry of Public Utilities, Energy, Logistics and E-Governance, MPU-ELE, the Ministry of Youth, Sport and Transport, and the Belize City Council, BCC. The e-mobility project tackled critical issues from improving road networks to creating sustainable solutions for future generations.
It impacts not only our energy use, but it also impacts our mode of transportation. It will provide our citizens with a cleaner, smoother ride from district to district.
The most significant achievement of the project so far is the social impact. We've reached over 66,000 commuters in less than 4 months, and we've received only positive comments from them. This includes serving some of the most vulnerable populations in Belize City, including the elderly, the disabled, children, and students.
The staff and the drivers for the e-mobility project have really adapted well. They have done everything from first aid training to public relations training to learning about new technologies, learning much more about EVs and electric motors and how to use them and maintain them properly.
This is a pilot project, so that means that we're just testing it out in its initial stage, and the idea is that we're going to upscale. Based on the information and data that we collect from the pilot, it would then inform how we upscale this project. The idea is that we want to transition the country fully to low carbon transport.
In terms of planning for either replication or expansion of the project, the Mayor and the Belize City Council are very hopeful to have, after this pilot project, a significant expansion to serve more of Belize City, and of course with the integration of current bus operators.
The most significant achievement is first to launch a pilot project, and then we're launching in the north and the west within another month or two, and the commuters in the city have the experience. So those in the north and the west will also have the experience in a very short time. And what we have seen in the city, the experience is wonderful.
As Belize looks ahead to a brighter and more connected future, the e-mobility project stands as a testament to what can be achieved through vision, collaboration, and determination. This is more than the end of a project, it's the beginning of a new era for Belize.
For our commuters and our passengers, we want to say that there's reliable and quality public transportation that you can use.
For the first time, people traveling from district to district will be able to travel in an electric bus, lowering the use of fossil fuels, reducing our carbon footprints, and giving the general public, an updated, a more modern form of transportation.
Together, we are moving forward. Together, we are building a stronger future.
All right, welcome back to the Energy Exchange. We now turn our attention to Mr. Chad Dietrich. Chad, as one of the first private sector entities in Belize to offer electric vehicles, what has been the customer response so far? And have you noticed any common barriers or misconceptions as it relates to potential buyers?
Absolutely. Whenever you introduce something new, there's always going to be misconceptions. There's always going to be a challenge being an early adopter to get it off the ground. So I would say absolutely, but not insurmountable. So for the most part, from electric vehicle buyers, and I would also say for the e-mobility users, there might be a negativity in the beginning. But it's really the experience of driving electric that really changes people's minds. The testing it, feeling what it's actually like. I remember when the first two buses in Belize City, just before they were launched and there was the announcement, there was actually quite a bit of negativity in the media about it, in social media. Once they launched and people got to experience it, that completely flipped to the other side, where people were talking about their positive experience with electric, with the public transportation, with the e-buses. And I would say since launching electric vehicles in the country, we did quite a bit of test drive events throughout the country for people to come and experience it. And some people would show up because they liked the idea of it and they wanted to experience it. Some people showed up because they wanted to tell us that it wouldn't work, and it doesn't work in Belize. And through encouragement, let's say, we got them to take a test drive, and when we got back, the conversation completely changed from skepticism to being an advocate. They loved how it felt, they loved the feeling, they loved the experience. And I always narrow down people within the EV industry, the general public, into about 4 categories. I'm sure there's more, but I use 4 categories when I put on different education seminars. One is an early adopter. So they've actually said, yes, I'm willing to make an investment in this. I'm going to buy a car. I'm going to invest in buses, right? The early adopter is saying, I'm into this technology and I'm willing to invest. We've got the advocates. They talk a lot about it. They're absolutely for something, but they haven't invested yet for whatever reason. They might not have had an opportunity, they might not have the means, but they are advocates to everybody they talk about this new technology, in this case, e-mobility. We have the cautious and skeptical onlooker, and they're the ones that say, hey, Mr. Fox, you invest, you tell me how it goes, right? I'm into this, I like this. I want somebody else to experience it first and tell me, yeah, you know, it's good to do this, right? And we have a lot of those. And then we have the skeptic. And quite frankly, they've set their mind on, they don't want this, doesn't matter what facts. And that's okay, right? It's gonna take time for those people to come around. We focus on the advocates, we focus on those cautious and skeptical onlookers. And again, to me, it's about the experience. That's what we have gained the understanding. People need to experience it to understand. The other thing is, I'm a huge fan of e-mobility. In terms of the public transportation, I almost take the focus of the new buses off of the fact that they're electric and onto it's a different quality, it's a different level, it's a different standard of public transportation. I would say a lot of our general public that's using e-mobility is not through the moon that it's electric necessarily. They're enjoying the new experience, the fact that it's quiet, it's smooth, it's clean, it's modern, it has USB chargers, it has Wi-Fi. For them, it's more about the features than it is what's powering it. There's no black smoke puffing them in the face when they get off, right? And same with our EV drivers. A lot of them are thrilled about the features as well as the economics of it. So with the average EV driver saving between 60 and 70% on fuel costs, that's what makes them excited. So it's about that education. We also find, to me, it was a surprise. One of the barriers that we have is US media, believe it or not. There's skepticism in the US media these days, and maybe reports that aren't quite truthful, but based on the US market for EVs. And some of that trickles down here to us, and we see people coming in asking these same questions that they're hearing in the US media. The Belize market is very different. So one thing, our geographic size makes it absolutely perfect for e-mobility. One thing people think is a drawback, so those misconceptions, is that our hot climate is bad for the batteries. And quite frankly, the hot, humid climate's actually very good for lithium batteries. In cold climates, you actually have quite a reduction in that in the usable storage capacity. So in the winter, in cold climates, you get about half the range in some cases as what you do in warm climates. So from that perspective, Belize actually works out very well for e-mobility. So there are those misconceptions, and it's just going to take people to use the technology to really understand the benefits.
Nice.
Yeah, and I think also since Belize is prone to flooding, people are skeptical on these buses won't run with the flooded streets.
Yes.
With battery, but I think test has been done that it is resilient to.
That's right. So for instance, the city buses, the batteries are on the roof, so they're actually quite far out of the elements from flooding. The electric cross-country coach buses, the batteries are up in the storage compartment, and the weighting depth of electric vehicles is quite surprising, actually. There are electric vehicles on the market that can actually float in water. It pressurizes, the battery gets pressurized, and so electric vehicles and water, that issue is not as big as what most people make it out to. Often after major floods, we have vehicles come into the shop that have been affected because of high water going through to high water with gas and diesel engines. So we see We see oftentimes when something new comes out, we want to project an old problem on the new technology, even though the problem exists with the old technology. We see that a lot in this industry. So, but yes, these are all great questions to ask, right? If we don't know, we need to ask the question.
Yeah, public awareness is important, and that's why in the concept note there's a section of knowledge sharing and execute a communication plan to the general public on what are EVs, especially e-buses, and the adaptation of public transportation. Essentially also, and something that I forgot in my session was capacity building. We need enough technical people that know how to troubleshoot, how to do maintenance, and properly operate an electric bus. So it's important with the public education. The pilot project has enhanced a vocational education program here in ITVET Belize City, but this is not enough for the entire country. So the BELT, the concept note, is planning to upscale it at a national level with all the vocational institution, with the current technicians and also any new technicians that would want to delve into e-mobility.
So this will be available across the country?
Across the country,
Okay.
within the plan. So it's a barrier that the customers would have, that we bring new technologies and there's no proper training. So that is being dealt with within the concept note. We will have technical people that knows how to solve a troubleshooting or any incident within the electric mobility.
Yeah, even with the bus project, the manufacturer sent representatives before the launch to do mechanical training, technical training. They train first responders. How do you respond to an incident with an electric bus? They involved students from ITVET to sensitize them to the new technology. So yeah, it's very important, all of these different levels of society that need to have knowledge of how to work with these buses or electric mobility in general.
Chad, as a pioneer introducing electric vehicles to Belize, what challenges have you encountered in terms of supply chain logistics, such as importing EVs and spare parts? And also, how are you addressing these situations?
That's a great question. One of the surprising challenges we had early on, and still to this day, is getting manufacturers, our vehicle manufacturers, to allow for some of their models to be sold in this region of the world. Generally, when the major vehicle manufacturers release new models, they're released to the larger market segments first, where they know they're going to sell a lot of vehicles. They don't just go, hello world, here's a new model. They go region by region. And Latin America, because of their slower uptake of EVs, their slower uptake of implementing charging infrastructure, vehicle manufacturers tend to release suitable models for us kind of later on than other regions of the world. Let's say Australia has really positively adopted EVs. So we tend to see models getting released in other regions first before we do. So where there might be a demand in some cases, we have a hard time finding manufacturers to supply suitable EV models for us. So that's been a little bit of a surprise, where the demand is there in some cases, but the supply of the models aren't. One thing we're finding is maybe a good transition model. There is full electric, where the vehicle runs completely off of battery, but there's also a technology called plug-in hybrid, or PHEV, plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, and that embodies both a gas or diesel engine and electric and battery. So it kind of bridges the gap for people to get them used to charging a vehicle, running on electric, the benefits of electric, but they still have the safety net and comfort of having the gas or diesel engine. So some of those models are becoming available. We should have a couple of new models coming in shortly to fill that gap. But yeah, finding the proper supply and vehicles that fit our country well. Belize tends to be predominantly a pickup truck and large SUV market. If we look at kind of the early electric vehicles, and even now, predominantly they're very small cars, subcompact cars. So it's to find those vehicles that are suitable for our drivers, for our road conditions, for the terrain that people want to use a vehicle. You know, there's generally an electric vehicle for just about every type of vehicle, every type of model that we could desire, but some is what's capable range-wise. But with new technology, with new battery technology, with plug-in hybrids, it seems like we're bridging the gap and have something that will fit almost everybody. So yeah, it's to attract manufacturers, and because Belize tends to be a pretty small market when it comes to new vehicles. I think the number is pretty staggering for a lot of people. The New Car Dealers Association, all the new car dealers in the country combined, all of their brands, all of the dealers together represent between 800 and 1,000 units a year. In a lot of cases, that doesn't get the big auto manufacturers too excited to get a small portion of that small of a market. There's new car dealerships in the United States that sell that amount in a month. One dealership, right? So it's really to work hard to attract top quality, world-renowned auto manufacturers to offer our population their vehicles. That's been the biggest challenge.
And with that said, Chad, in the quest to upscale the adoption of EVs into Belize, what role does a dealership like yours play in terms of supporting this goal?
Well, I think we're an element as much as BEL needs to provide the power for it, as much as the Climate Finance Unit is bringing together pilot projects to support, to the government providing policies and master plans. I think all that could fall into place, but if the dealerships aren't there to supply, the consumers have nothing to buy. So I think we provide a critical role in that chain, as everybody else does, to put that whole plan together. We're happy to be a part of this, and I think information sharing has been crucial in these early stages. There's a lot of information being shared amongst all the stakeholders. There's been recent meetings that Justino was at as well, where we're sharing our experiences. We're learning from maybe what didn't go well and how could it go better in the future. You know, whenever anything is introduced, there's always going to be missteps, but it's how we learn from them, how we adapt, how we collaborate, how we all form part of that master plan. So I think the dealerships are one part of it, but yes, a critical part to sharing information and really getting it out there. Like I said, for most users, it's about the experience. They might not be sure before they experience it, but once they experience the benefits of it, the feeling, all of that, then they're sold on the technology.
All right, thank you, Chad. So we're now approaching the closing of our discussion, but before we do so, I would like to ask all three of you, how do you see electric mobility evolving in Belize over the next 3 to 5 years?
I believe with the concept note development that has been done, it's a holistic view and proper consultations with other stakeholders. The vision is that within the next 2 to 5 years, we do this implementation. It's the amount of buses that we envision, especially the highway buses, it's above 100 units. It's still we need to finalize the master plan, However, I believe that once we have the policies in place, the road service permit, energy sustainability, and ensuring the public that yes, this is the way to go, and let the people trust again the public transportation system, because I think everybody have experience coming into Belize City, long lines early in the morning. There's many people that lives around or even travel from Orange Walk with their own vehicle because of not trusting the system. So once we ensure that the reliability of public transportation is there, the safety and also comfort, then adoption of or the customers transitioning from their the private vehicles to public transportation will be enhanced, and so more investments will come into the public transportation. And I'm sure that within the next 2 years we will start to see a jump on adoption of electric mobility, with all the incentive programs, the policies in place. So it's something that the current administration is willing to provide. The different initiatives, the different incentives will be there. Also, the private sector, BEL, the dealership, Caribbean Motors, and there's others that would want to invest in bringing electric mobility. I believe there's another one, the Evolutions Limited also, and competitiveness increases, and it's good for Belize to have competition in this. We get good prices. So we the government is doing its part. Then I'm sure, as I mentioned, once we ensure that the policies are in place, then adaptation will come in.
Okay, so as the government pushes for finance for e-mobility, that of course that means that BL needs to be there to provide that electricity to power these vehicles, right? So that's the main thing, getting to that point of sustainability where we can supply our entire demand. But of course, if we have the power from Mexico, we take it when we need it, but when they don't have it, we also have the capacity in country to meet the demand, or the growing demand that will come from these e-mobility projects.
Chad?
I think the shift has been like a freight train. In terms of it's a little bit slow to start. So we've been working on this for 4 to 5 years now, and I think in that time, I think there's approximately 50 EVs in country right now. So not groundbreaking, but in that time, the groundwork's being laid. BEL's doing their part in getting the energy supply in place. Government is creating policies for this to thrive. People are gaining experience and understanding and education. So I think the groundwork's been laid, and things are ready to really move in the industry.
All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen, so very much for being a part of our discussion on e-mobility for the Energy Exchange. And a huge thank you to our viewers and everyone that tuned in with us tonight. Thank you very much for listening and being a part of our discussion as well.
The Energy Exchange Show was funded by the European Union in partnership with the United Nations Development Programme, the Ministry of Public Utilities, Energy, Logistics, and E-Governance, the Ministry of Youth, Sport and Transport, and the Belize City Council.